r/AskReddit. Adults of Reddit, what was something you were unprepared for when you first moved out of your parents' house? The fact that $100 is no longer a lot of money. Come back to a dark, liveless home in the evenings. Since my mom worked 6 am 2 pm until a few years ago, and we lived with my grandparents, there were always someone home when I'd come back from school. Even if we didn't chat, there was someone there, moving around, doing their own things. It sometimes was annoying, because I sometimes was tired and needed peace and quiet. But I underestimate how much reassuring it was. Happy things don't just happen, you decide to do them. All those fun events and great memories you had growing up. The birthday parties, beach trips, days you decided to turn the living room into a castle of sheets and cushions. My parents deliberately planned those things, or gave their own time on a whim, because they wanted me to be happy. Even if I'm tired from work, I try to plan fun, silly events and always celebrate holidays, because I realized no one's going to do it for me anymore. Don't forget to buy toilet roll. There is no magic toilet fairy despite appearances. Edit. Having read all the replies, it appears that I'm the toilet roll fairy. I'm glad to have reminded you all to buy more. You need to actually think about what you want to eat each and every day. I still can't get over it. Water cost money. I grew up on a farm with well water. It completely blew me away people had to pay for tap water. Years later I feel bad for people in cities that don't provide drinkable water. Our hometown had an oil pipe burst and contaminated their drinking water. Many people came to our farm for drinkable water. The amount of small things that needs to be done on everyday basis. Cooking, house cleaning, dishwashing, laundry, etc. And this does not include homework if you are a student, hobbies, personal life. I'm just so tired of all that stuff. Being on my own, if I got sick. I once got food poisoning when my roommate was away for the weekend. Vomiting every 20 to 30 minutes for an entire day. I was severely dehydrated and didn't even have the strength to walk to the drugstore for meds and Gatorade. Loneliness by far. I loved living by myself, but lying in bed without my cat on my bed, or without hearing my mom laughing downstairs made the room feel very small and secluded. How wrong my idea of independence was. Sure, you can do whatever you want whenever you want. But almost every activity generates waste in some capacity that you need to deal with. Also, if you have a full-time job, having to forego hanging out with friends that don't. Sorry guys, I can't hang out until 2 am on Tuesday to play video games anymore. Gotta be up at 6. You become an adult when you make a run to the store for a plunger and nothing else. Edit. I've learned from the replies that you actually become an adult when you learn to take a joke, loving everyone else's stories though. The lack of auto-refilling cupboards in the kitchen. When I ate all the food, the cupboards just stayed stubbornly empty. At my parents' home they always magically refilled. The odd sense of a lack of security going to bed the first few nights. I'm close with my parents, so when I lived at home I always felt a bit safer that they were downstairs when I went up to bed. It was weird when that was gone. Not having someone there to remind you of your responsibilities. I did all my own chores and often cooked my own food while still living with parents. I moved out at 24, but my mom used to yell into my room at times, like if you don't do your laundry now, you won't have anything to wear for work tomorrow. And so I'd sigh and pause my game and start on laundry. After moving out, I was constantly doing chores last minute, so my laundry was never fully done. Only one room in my apartment would get cleaned. I was constantly going to the corner store to get stuff for dinner instead of paying much less by making a big Walmart run, etc. It's not that I was lazy. Hell, I was working 60 to 70 hours a week. When I first moved out, I just needed to learn to think about chores first, because I was used to being reminded by someone who already had that shit all planned out. At first you think it's depressing that you only have a couple hours a week for leisure, but then you realize it's much more depressing to go through life with a dirty place, no clean clothes and constantly eating McDonald's or ramen. Finding a new doctor. Still haven't seen one since I moved out 3 years ago. When something seems to be slightly wrong, I just hope that it will get better without seeing a doctor. I'm kind of worried that I'm going to regret this at some point. Renting. One tip I can give is when you move in and fill out the entry report, be as absolutely thorough as you can. Take the time to fully inspect everything and write it down on the entry report. Even the tiniest of marks, stains and any other damage that is present when you move in. And take photos. Photograph everything and keep those photos safe. Real estates will try to blame you for everything they can take you for when you move out, so that they and the owners don't have to pay for repairs. Cover your ass. It was so much easier than I expected. My parents made me feel I was generally incompetent and too irresponsible to live on my own. Finally moved out and was amazed that I could keep my place clean, cook, and handle finances on my own. Fast forward 30 years, I'm doing freaking really well. The freedom. The fact that I could go out without hearing, "Where are you going? It's 11 o'clock." Or waking up at noon on Saturday because I had a few drinks Friday night and watched TV until I was damn well good and ready to go to bed. Not having to explain what I was doing. Cleaning up the place when I felt like it and not one fucking minute before. Married with 2 teenagers now, and I'm doing the exact same things to them that my parents did. And I realize that they weren't the hovering control freaks that I thought they were. They were just parents. At 21, I set up a delivery for bed I paid for from a local furniture shop, and they never showed. I tried calling, and they blew me off. My solution? Go down to the courthouse and get papers to take them to small claims court. I called my mom and she laughed, saying, "You're experiencing what every housewife in America has gone through. Just go in and talk to them tomorrow." I did. The manager apologized and delivered it that day. How scary getting hurt is when you're by yourself. If you cut your finger badly by accident, you're the only who's there to help. Credit checks. I thought I would have been able to find an apartment easy. Nope. And that you have to sometimes pay a deposit, last and current month's rent, and make a certain amount to even get considered. I remember one complex made it a requirement to have apartment insurance or something like that. Money management. First month was very difficult as I didn't know how to assign certain expenses. Threw a party first week and pretty much spent everything. Had to survive on my savings. I planned to make chocolate chip cookie dough and eat the entire batch. Turns out there was a reason my parents hadn't allowed that. I couldn't look at cookie dough for a couple years after that. I really am an adultier adult. Regular dish soap is not the same as dishwasher soap. I flooded my first apartment kitchen with bubbles, lots and lots of bubbles, along with generally how much money and work it takes to keep up. I'm gonna say everything. People whose parents didn't prepare them for life unite, but the worst part was learning how quickly you can go into debt when you're spending money with credit cards and never checking your account. That was an expensive lesson. That electric bills in the winter in the Midwest are fucking brutal. I had no idea that it costs so damn much money to keep a small little apartment with electric heat at a livable temperature. I averaged about $80 to $100 a month for the first few months, then about $200 for November/December, January, and a massive ice storm hit, and suddenly I was faced with a $580 electric bill I couldn't pay. Thank God for mom and dad, because the electric company sure didn't give a shit. It is utterly amazing to be free of an abusive household. I realized that moving out was not nearly as scary as my parents made it out to be. Sure, cheese is expensive, and you can't save as much money, but it's a small price to pay. How much I'd be visiting the pound/euro store equivalents for most of my daily essentials. How many problems starter apartments have. I had some leverage moving in, because they hadn't been able to find anyone willing to rent it for a year and a half. So before I moved in, I was able to convince the landlord to paint over the large quantities of graffiti, put shades on the windows in the bedroom and bathroom, and put knobs on the cabinets so I could open them. But the apartment still has a massive water damage/mold issue and has secret unlocked doors to 2 other apartments. I think they are supposed to be fire exits, but a heads up would have been nice. You have been visited by Mr. Doggo. Subscribe and leave like to have luck for the next 10 years.